Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This video is going up tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Not tomorrow morning. Today is Monday, March 23rd. This will be going up on Wednesday morning. There'll be no video on Tuesday. But anyways, so this happened. And this might be the biggest story. There might be something that happens that I have to do an introduction, and there's something every day. But this is a pretty big event, and I'll probably be adding to this over the next couple days. But to start off with, here's some guy from Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful.
ar-Rahim.
You sound not like, like you sound a little bit amped up to be talking about God. As we have announced previously, the armed forces of Iran will target all infrastructure belongings to America and
همانطور که قبلا اعلام کردیم نیروهای مسلح ایران تمام زیرساخت‌های متعلق به آمریکا و رژیم صهیونیستی
the Zionist regime, turn the volume down here, and officially accept and announce responsibility. Boom.
را مورد هدف قرار خواهند داد و مسئولیت آن را رسما می‌پذیرند و اعلام می‌نمایند.
According to received intelligence, the Zionist regime intends to attack energy infrastructure in the region.
برابر اخبار دریافتی، رژیم صهیونیستی قصد حمله به زیرساخت‌های انرژی در منطقه از جمله تأسیسات
including Armaco facilities, the regime's history of malicious acts to frame Iran and create division.
آرامکو را دارد که سوابق شرارت‌های رژیم برای متهم‌سازی ایران و ایجاد فتنه بین کشورهای منطقه
Among the countries of the region confirms this evil intention.
مؤید این نیت پلید میباشد و من نصر
And victory is only from God, the Almighty, the Wise.
الا من عند الله العزیز الحکیم.
All right, so this happened, right? So Iran has said this place called Diego Garcia, which is a remote American base. Iran launched missiles as U.S. UK military base in Indian Ocean. Here's what it says about its capabilities. Here's what that says about the capabilities. Iran fires missiles to remote U.S. base, suggesting long-range capabilities. Iran brings Europe into the range with missiles fired at Diego Garcia. Foreign Secretary denounces reckless Iran threats after missile fired at Diego Garcia. This is also an attempt to bring Britain into the war, right? Iran denies allegations it targeted Diego Garcia with missiles, claims Israeli false flag. And there is support for this. This guy is somebody, says here, NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte says the alliance cannot confirm Israelis' claim that missiles targeting Diego Garcia were Iranian intercontinental ballistic missiles. So that happened. So that the, NATO, which is here, Israeli submarine shot at the ballistic missiles towards Diego Garcia, according to Russian and Chinese satellites. Another false flag operations by Israel, like drone attack on Cyrus, which was later confirmed as a launched by Israel. So Israel has hit, come on, right? Like, this is what they do. The UK has accused Tehran of firing ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, but has been Israel. And so, that's fucked, right? Okay, so if I searched here on Twitter, Diego Garcia false flag, breaking Spain's Minister of Transportation comments on Netanyahu's statement today, trying to drag Europe into war. I don't know what he's saying here. This looks like another fake Netanyahu.
The third thing they did is they fired an intercontinental ballistic missiles 4,000.
Right here, let's make that louder.
The third thing they did is they fired an intercontinental ballistic missiles 4,000 kilometers right into Diego Garcia, the American-British base. They can reach now with these ballistic missiles everywhere in Europe, almost everywhere in Europe. I've been warning that for years. The fourth thing that they did is that they shut down the important maritime strait of Hormuz, trying to blackmail the world with oil terror blackmail. 4 things that they're doing in 48 hours. And I ask the leaders of the world, the leaders of the free world, the leaders of the moderate states, what more are you waiting for? President Trump has correctly said that Israel, the United States and Israel in this great partnership, we're fighting the battle not only for ourselves, but for all of you. And he asked a simple question, where are you? And it's time to heed President Trump's call, his leadership, and his vision, not merely for our sake, but for you.
Okay, so and this guy's responded. You know, I guess like
The third thing they did
he said
is
for
they
your
fought,
sake. He points out to cut it off the end here.
not merely for our sake, but for your sake.
For your sake, okay. We'll get it in there. The AI. We're not going with you even around the corner, you genocidal bastard. Let's see if you get it. And then all these other things. This guy is calling it George, whatever his name is, George. You know, that guy from Ireland. I can't remember his name offhand. Israel's a criminal state. They carried out the false flag in Diego Garcia. You know, they're trying to drag Europe into it, obviously. Here's the video of it, all right? You know, and it's just all these people. But, you know, the mainstream media isn't covering this. And, I mean, Israel just attacked America and Europe, right? Israel, like, if that's a false flag done by Israel, then they just attacked Europe and America. They attacked Great Britain and America, a base there. So they are now at war with America and Britain, and you know, and manipulating you and trying to send your kids to war for them, right? This is the kind of shit that they do. And so, you know, like this is kind of a big thing. So, all right, let's move on to the other stuff here. Okay, so the other thing here, let's watch, see if there's, it's hard to say, like this totally could be AI. Why is he the only one wearing sunglasses? They were wearing sunglasses back here. You know what this means, though, is Israel and America getting their ass kicked, right? In terms of what they're trying to do here. Because why do they need Europe? Like, why is he begging NATO to get in there? Right? Like, this is a, you know, if somebody attacks one NATO country, all the countries are supposed to come in. And so when they attack Great Britain and America, or part of NATO, then, you know, everyone's supposed to be involved in this. But the reality is, why do they need European, whatever it is, vessels or anything else, right? They can't open the Strait of Hormuz. Israel's getting pummeled by rockets. And they're going to have to fight a ground war in fucking Iran where this is going to go south, right? And so, you know, like, why do they have to beg Europe to get in? Like, why do they have to do false flags to get Europe to get in, right? Like, America and Israel, like, Israel and Iran are supposed to have equal militaries. You know, one is like 16th and the other is 50th. I think Israel's considered a stronger military and they have nuclear weapons. Of course, those aren't going to be used. But, you know, there's that. And so, you know, like there's begging Europe, like you're getting your ass handed to you that much, you got to beg Europe to get involved. And they don't want any fucking part of this. You know, the whole NATO thing and Trump and all that bullshit. Right? So there's that. Okay, so whenever you see a situation where there might be some dispute about whether it being a false flag or not, or who's responsible for something, you know, you take in history, and Israel and America are horrific liars about this, as well as every country around the world has these false flags, but, you know, Israel's does them in other countries. I mean, I think America and Israel are the ones that do it in other countries the most. And so there's history. But the number one thing is who benefits. Like, that's the first thing you should ask. So, you know, I talked about Hamas. You know, Hamas attacking Israel, Israel got to, I mean, who benefited from that? Israel got exactly what they've always wanted, which, you know, has happened quite a bit. That they did to the Gaza Strip, which what they've always planned to do and always wanted to do. So there's that, right? So that we know that they're the ones who benefited. So they're the ones that more than likely did it. And so to attack in the middle of the Indian Ocean and attack a British military base immediately brings in the the whole uh, NATO thing, right? Bringing in all these European countries. I mean, this is what he's wanting. Who benefits from that? Well, Israel and America want that. Iran isn't asking for Europe to come in, so why would they attack a European base when there's a NATO thing, right? It kicks into NATO. You're now at war with NATO, all these countries, right? Which is what Trump and Netanyahu want. The other thing it does, it proves they have long-range missiles, which also brings in Europe. And, he's trying to justify, look, they do have long-range missiles. They can reach that. But why would they do that when their main enemy is Israel, right? They're not, they don't want to be involved with an Indian Ocean type of situation in any country around there. And so why would Iran do it? It doesn't make any sense. But we know why Israel would do it. One, they get to say, hey, we were right about the long-range missiles. And two, it gets to say, hey, they just attacked Britain, so now you guys got to come help with the Strait of Hormuz. And so, these are just, it's just common sense. Anyways, this is coming from a few days ago.
For asking American allies for help in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's foreign minister said of the U.S., quote, they carried out large-scale attacks and again repeated the demand for unconditional surrender. Today, they are turning to other countries for help. He also argued the Strait of Hormuz is, quote, only closed to our enemies.
Iran taunts Trump for asking allies to help with Strait of Hormuz.
Joining us now to discuss this and more is former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. Thanks for coming on, Congresswoman. So we all know you were a longtime loyal supporter of President Trump, but you broke with him in part because you felt he was too focused on foreign affairs rather than the America First promises he's made on.
Look at this dude here. Think about this, how bad things have gotten. And nobody gives a shit, this is an earthquake in the Republican Party. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was always, she started off as a QB, a QAnon dope, and then she was the ultimate Trumper, and she somehow broke with him because over Epstein mostly, right? The Epstein files, and then he called her a traitor. And now CNN is using her like an asset. Now, how many people are there who used to be Trumpers who now go on MSNBC and CNN and shit on Trump? Because Trump is a disloyal piece of shit. He loses people left and right. And then people who are adamant Trump supporters, Chris Christie, one of his biggest supporters, an old-time friend, his lawyer, his former fixer, Michael Cohen, who went to jail for Trump, fixed stuff with, Stormy Daniels and all these other people. He's a lawyer who was a fixer for Trump. And they, now they, hate each other. And then all these other people. Of course, there was people like John Bolton and, that neocon piece of shit. He wasn't ever a real Trumper. And he, was happy about the Iran thing because he's had a hard-on for Iran. But, he's another one. Like all these people that used to be Trumpers that go on liberal media and say Trump's a piece of shit, right? Because that's how everything ends with Trump. People don't, they realize he's a piece of shit.
He made on the campaign trail. As we enter day 17 of the Iran war, do you believe the president's voters can trust him?
Well, just to be clear, the president broke with me over the Epstein files. So that always has to be said. He called me a traitor because I stood with women who were raped when they were 14 and 16. But I do completely disagree where the president has led the country. You know what? It makes absolutely no sense, Pamela, going into midterm elections. Let's remove Donald Trump out of it. Let's just put any president in there. Why would an American president lead his political party into the midterms, waging a full-scale major war, completely unprovoked on Iran, on behalf of Israel? And that's the way most Americans see it. They see this is for Israel, not for America. Why would an American president do that, which is forcing gas prices to hike right here going into spring break where families are going to be driving out of town, going into summer?
All right, so you get the idea. Right. This is, reality and how fucked it is. How an extreme thing this is, that he's lost some of his most extreme followers. And, I mean, she loved Trump. And then, like, they broke over Epstein. And then, we're going to get to Epstein because it's totally related. I got this thing here. Oil prices rise after Trump issues ultimatum, and Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz indefinitely. They got $8 a gallon there. I don't know what that is. At Food Mart. In Los Angeles, it's $8 a fucking gallon in Los Angeles. Holy shit. $8.71. People be moving out of fucking California. So, it's, the fact is that he's got to threaten means that he can't do anything about the Strait of Hormuz. They have no plan. They don't know how to deal with it. They're like fucked. Like, I mean, as, whatever Trump says about the war, if they can, whatever they intend to do and hit Iran's power plants and whatever the bullshit that is, I mean, that's not going to fucking work. Like, we've already seen this. They're going all in. This is their opportunity to get rid of Israel and America permanently, right? They're paying $8 a gallon, according prices as high as $8.71 per gallon. Statewide average is lower, hovering around $5 a gallon. But Jesus Christ, I mean, they want to let Gavin Newsom, right? Like, and try. I mean, it's a disaster. $8 a fucking gallon. Like, I remember when I was a kid, it went up to $1 a gallon. Like, we had in the 70s, they had gas shortages. And I remember sitting in the car with my dad, and the gas station, like, was 200 cars away from us. We were in line for, like, 200 cars. Like, when cars are in line, like, when people are in line, it's one thing, because it's, it's about a foot and a half between, like 3 feet for each person, say. The physical dimensions of your body, which is about 8 inches wide, 10 inches, 12 inches a foot, and then there's the space in between you and the next person. It's whole cars, and so we were going around the block because they had these gas shortages, and everyone had to wait in line forever, and it went up to $1, and people were freaking the fuck out, right? And they're paying $8 in some places in California and $5 regularly. That's what diesel is. Like, I noticed diesel went up, and I have to fill these gas cans for my truck and, for my tractor. And so, it's kind of a whole thing. And I'm like, wow, it's fucking... If diesel went up to $5 a while ago, I think when the whole thing happened with they targeted those... we haven't seen the software attacks, because Iran has software. Like, they can do shit to America, software-wise, right? And China and Russia certainly can. Remember, they hacked that refinery in America, and people were filling bags of fucking plastic garbage bags full of gas, remember? So then this is the Epstein thing.
Yeah, well, I think it's highly unlikely that he didn't know. It's highly unlikely. I don't have the facts. But we do know that Khan, Epstein's accountant, testified that the Epstein estate settled with Jane Doe number 4, a very important Jane Doe. Jane Doe number 4's files were hidden until Trump bombed Iran and changed the subject. Jane Doe's number 4 files were only found missing because of the Maxwell discovery. And people noticed that...
Oh, here, let's watch the rest.
Stamps, numbers that lawyers use to identify documents were missing. So we get, finally, right after bombing Iran, we get the Jane Doe number 4 files. Now, lying to the FBI is a crime. Martha Stewart went to jail for it. All people interviewed by the FBI are told that. Jane Doe number 4 alleged to the FBI that Epstein abused her when she was 13 and that Trump abused her when she was 15. Khan, Epstein's accountant, testified that the Epstein estate settled with Jane Doe number 4 for both Epstein and Trump. His lawyer tried to walk that back. Indike refused to confirm or deny that. Now, how do we get to the bottom of that? Congress passes a law invalidating all NDAs from the Trump or the Trump organization, from Epstein, any of his entities, from the estate, or based on any activities at the Epstein.
All right, so, you know, that girl is completely credible because they settled with her, right? So, like Epstein's accountant said they settled with her, which means they settled with her, right? And about Trump. So Trump is a pedo, like which we knew because he said Jeffrey Epstein likes him on the young side. You know, and all the other things Trump's done before that. Like, we already know this about Trump. He's a freak. He's, you know, weird sexual stuff. And that's why he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. That's what they had in common, right? That's their number one thing. Of course, money and business and things. And so all these people working for Trump and all these Trump apologists, let's go to this thing with Tucker fucking Carlson. He's a piece of shit. Okay, so this came up. They caught Netanyahu red-handed and buried it. And then the question mark. And that's not really what this is about. This is about this guy, Joe Kent, and Trump, Tucker Carlson licking Trump's taint, right? So, here.
But it's been reported that Prime Minister Netanyahu's security detail was caught twice by Secret Service attaching some kind of device to the president's Secret Service emergency response vehicle. I don't know if that's true. Have you heard?
I don't know if that's true. Can you tell me? Do you know anything about that? Do you think about?
I've read it in the media. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
I think the president and the vice president and several members of the cabinet going out to dinner in D.C. and the Code Pink protesters having a heads up about that to rent the table. And that's hard to do. They had to figure out where they'd rent the table.
Code Pink on them.
They had to kind of get the restaurant on board to a certain extent. To me, that's kind of a almost like counting coup. It's a soft flex. It's a I can touch you whenever I want. It was Code Pink. They weren't going to do anything. We know they're just going to be kind of crazy and annoying. However, what does that mean?
What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean?
That means you've got real problems with your security detail. And then, you know, a few weeks later, you have an armed police officer who's off duty, who's not part of the president's detail, come right up and shake the president's hand. You know, and the guy's probably patriotic American, whatever. He
probably is. I don't know. If they're a bunch of rapists and drug dealers and maybe a few good people. I don't know.
Shake the president's hand legitimately, but that got a lot of publicity. And what does that mean?
What's it mean? What does it mean? So,
you know, and the president, again, President Trump is very smart. I think President Trump has a gift for interpreting large sets of data.
Yes.
And making very, very key strategic decisions.
Holy shit, right? He's a fucking moron. Now, first of all, he's a demon. Like, he's a low consciousness, low vibration, low appetite based person. You know, people who are, like I've talked about the various regions. You know, there's the heart region, there's the mind region, and there's the gut, right? The heart, the mind, the gut. Not the region, but the heart, the mind, the gut. And your heart is your higher nature, which is where your soul exists. Your mind is your mind, you know, your brain and your thinking apparatus, which is intellectual, you know, can be reasoned with, but not emotional. And then there's your gut, which is your lower base emotions. And Trump is a gut person, right? And he's got, you know, deviant levels of, you know, I mean, that's where you get into the deviant behavior. Your gut, you know, your gut level stuff, your anger, your fear, your hatred, your lust, you know, all these things, right? The things that are there, your appetites, your animalistic nature. And Trump is not curious. You know, there was a video out, I don't know if I have it up, but he says that Gavin Newsom can't be president because he's dyslexic. And Trump is also dyslexic, which I am, the three of us, right? But Trump is not, you know, when you're dyslexic, you have a different learning style. It's not, you know, there's a lot of very successful dyslexic people, but, you know, pattern recognition, these types of things. You know, Trump is good at grifting. He's really good. He's a gifted grifter. You know, he's good at telling people what they want to hear, knowing what people want to hear, but not really understanding why they want to hear it. He doesn't understand people. Like, he, you know, he expects people to be more loyal to him, that he's won them over, and that they're going to give up on Epstein or whatever else they're passionate about. He doesn't understand that kind of motivation. He doesn't understand people having a moral compass. Like, he doesn't get certain things about human behavior. He doesn't understand why people think about God and, you know, have a devotional thing. Like he doesn't get those things. He doesn't have them himself, right? And he doesn't, want to listen to people, and he doesn't like data. Like this thing he said, this whole.
President Trump is very smart. I think President Trump has a gift for interpreting large sets of data.
Yes.
And making very, very key strategic decisions. And so when the president sees that he's got issues with his own security detail, when he sees what happened in Butler with the other assassination attempts.
Okay, so that, they get into this whole thing. Like that fucking Butler's fake and you guys fucking know it. Like these guys are both smarter than Trump. And so, like absolute piece of shit.
When he sees what happened with Charlie, I think it's reasonable to believe that somewhere in his head he thinks that, like, maybe I don't have a choice. Maybe they could harm me or they could harm my family. And if they can't keep me safe, I believe the president deeply cares. I believe he's very courageous. I think if it was just
he's so courageous. He's so brave.
Matter of he worried about his own physical safety.
He's a worthless piece of shit. He started World War III. He's bringing down the system. Now, like I can say from a understanding of the Sajmark teaching, but my own understanding of the system and its demonic nature that, Trump is doing God's work and, just like Netanyahu is, but they're not good people. They're demons. This is, they're doing destructive work, right? They're destroying something that is, harming the world, like it's harming people, and it has to go. So, there's that, like that, that's generous. I mean, it's truthful, not generous. It's truthful. But, they're not saying that, right? Trump is a fucking uncurious, a narcissistic, demonic, low vibration, low appetite person. And, like everything that you would say about the guy, this is a defining moment. Iran's a defining moment. And he was Epstein. Like he bought a beauty pageant so he could go in the dressing room and he said he could get away with it with, I got that whole I got an hour-long compilation of Trump being creepy, saying he hired a 15-year-old girl with no experience because she was, he thought she was beautiful, right? And he was attracted to her, and he said, like, that's his crack. That's his alcohol. 15-year-old girls, right? So, he said these things. He said he walked in on these young girls, some of them teenagers, in these beauty contests to see them in their dressing room. And they were supposed to go and fawn all over them, they were told by his staff. To go, they were half naked, some of them, right? They're in the dressing room. And so, like he's an absolute piece of shit. There's no redeeming things about Trump. He's a grifter. He's there's nothing good about him. There's no positive qualities. There's no higher nature. He's, somebody that runs things into the ground, makes bad decisions. And these guys should know all that, right? But then he gets into truther stuff here.
The information you described, we got a lot of his online activity, which we've been told didn't exist. And this was not an attack on the FBI. This
would come in and we would get the truth because, the previous administration really screwed this thing up. And there just wasn't curiosity there. There wasn't curiosity and there wasn't a tolerance.
Who made that up?
I think that's just made up. I don't, because then how do you ever investigate anything?
What law school did you go to? Right. And I asked this question for the explanation for that.
I know what the result is. The result is people come to their own conclusions, and this is where, like, obvious that there should be information. Like you outlined, like there's potentially footage of crooks at the shooting range. Again, Police 101, go get the tapes. Let's figure it out. If you don't want to address that question, then you go silent on it and you say you can't ask that question, which then creates people who come out of kind of nowhere and they start drawing their own conclusions.
Right.
Knowing the way the internet works, I mean, half of them, if not more, are probably going to be so far off in left field and made by legitimate kooks or bots that then you can just be like, oh, these people asking these questions about that tape at the video range.
It's space
They're
aliens.
All crazy conspiracy theorists. They say it's a UAP or whatever. And so then you've just, diverted all attention away from the thing that you're trying to conceal.
Oh my God, it's so brilliant. You got to repeat that again. So these two fucks, right? So, I don't know when it was, 2012, 2004 to 15, I don't know what. Washington Post did a huge story about a massive data center where they had like 180,000 employees. And now, of course, they can, it all can be done with AI bots. But they hired all these people. They were building these centers, for intelligence community This was to do with the intelligence community, and they were putting out disinformation. Like these were disinformation agents. They realized the truth community was kicking their ass, so they started putting out disinformation massively. Of course, there's bots and AI technology to do it even more so. And, the way the algorithms were working, they would recognize those people and promote them. Whatever the false, these people like these fake fucks, like this fucking piece of shit, right? And so they would promote them. So a lot of it was government. And then there's just a lot of dumbasses out there. Now you had people who don't have the capacity for abstract thought, thinking that they're awakened, and the QBs and all those people, and they were promoted. Like I would make reasonable videos, and YouTube would recommend QB stuff because that was what they were told to do, right? So there was all that. But the main problem here is what he said in the beginning. They don't put out the information. They conceal things from you, and they out and out lie to you, and then they have all this massive disinformation, which is the main story. It isn't the crazy people, and it isn't that they can easily be debunked, because no one should give a shit about the official stuff. Like no one, when you realize the system can't be changed, then it doesn't matter what they're saying on the news. It doesn't matter what the politicians are saying. Like, things are going to go in a certain way, and you can't stop it. And I don't mean because of the controllers. I mean because of God. That at some point, the divine system kicks in, and everything's going to be managed, and everything's happening exactly the way it's planned, and you're in a destructive cycle, and you just have to deal with that whatever way you can, right? But these pieces of shit, right? So like he gets into this thing here.
Everyone's focused on the crazies.
Man.
No, he just looked like he nailed it. Watch.
And now everyone's focused on the crazies.
The crazies, right? They're the crazies. They're not focused on it. They want to make people crazy for telling the truth, right? They promote the crazies. Why don't they promote this higher developed souls? Why don't they promote the higher developed, truthers, people with the capacity to see through all the bullshit? Because there's plenty of us, right? Why don't they promote those people? It's because, they want to degrade the human experience, right?
Man.
And then the second someone asks a legitimate question, they're crazy.
I hope everyone watching will just clip that tape and keep it on your phone and replay it every day, because that is one of the primary ways that the...
All right, so there's that. The Trump is great. They talk about his fake assassination attempt again. They were talking about Kennedy's files being released, and how he said the government didn't release all of them because he doesn't want... government doesn't want you to believe a president can come in and say, release all the files and that you can get your way. They don't want to, get into the habit of having that happen. But there's nothing in there. They're just, it's just that they don't want to, give you information, right? That's his take. But then there was something here in the end.
Truth is the only thing that gets you there.
Oh, here, let's see it right here.
Destroy the body in which they live.
Yeah.
And if you care about the body, this country, if you're from here and you hope to live here and grandchildren,
I'm being very thoughtful now.
You have to fix that. And I really think that telling the truth, radically telling the truth, is the only thing that gets you there.
Okay, Trump's a fucking demon. And you said you're not going to play along with their lies anymore. I should, I got to clip that. I got to find it and clip it. Turn it into a meme. Let me see if I can find that thing. And then I have the meme. But, yeah, fucking telling the truth. But you can't fucking walk around and pretend Trump was a good guy. I don't know why, like there's nothing redeeming about Trump, right? Like his first term, it was refreshing to have somebody that's just, a total piece of shit and admitting it and not hiding it, not pretending and not playing the game and not acting presidential and all that stuff. Like I talked about that before. That was interesting. But other than that, he's a good grifter. And he's lied to and manipulated these dopes, which is kind of funny. The TDS, but this truth thing, let's get to the end of it.
And the pain that entails, and it does entail pain, there's no doubt about it, and humiliation, is much smaller a price to pay than the price that we will pay inevitably and maybe soon if we don't do it. I don't think this is sustainable, this level of lying in any society.
Well, there's been a lot of noise.
Okay, so that, all the lies come. I mean, when you build things on lies, it collapses, right? you build things on like a card house, but it's, lies are even less structural than a card house, right? And so, yeah, of course it's not sustainable. But, you can't talk about Trump like these guys the way that they talk about Trump. Let me get that little meme here for you.
I'm not going to play along with the lies anymore.
So briefly here, all these people who are now getting to the party late and being fake little sort of semi-truthers, flirting with the truth community, they get to look cool. They get to speak more. The people who just have to recite the party line. The people just go out and fucking do disinformation and just regurgitate the whole fucking bullshit stuff over and over again. It sucks for them because they're smart. Like, most of these people are smart, maybe not all of them. And they know they're just lying over and over again, repeating the lies, remedial lies. Where these other people get to use critical thinking skills to a certain extent, people like Tucker Carlson and, Candace Owens and these other people, right? They've been able to break free and still be celebrities, be able to do what they're doing, but not be real truthers, right? And the reason they're able to do that is because independent people who aren't, famous, people who aren't a part of the establishment media, have been putting out information, some of it wrong, some of it disinformation. I mean, in terms of their stupidity or their, inability to do a good job with it. But all of us who've been doing that have built something, right? And they knew it was coming. The people who run the system knew it was coming because they had shills like Alex Jones and other people who were part of the, sort of the gatekeepers and the people who were, filters for the disinformation or, whatever it was, right? The controlled opposition. But, those of us who went out and created something, and it was, millions of people, like as viewers and as creators, we created something together, and I mean, the purest part of it, the highest part of it, is substantially better than anything the mainstream put out, right? And, it's more accurate and it's more thoughtful and it's, just better. And so, that these people now get to do this, like Joe Kent and Tucker Carlson get to do this because we created something. They get to leave mainstream media, Megyn Kelly, all these people, and talk a little bit more truth. Again, not real truth, but, more truthful than the mainstream media because of that, right? And then they shit on us, like they shit on the, they make it like, oh, you guys are all crazy, and we're, and when we, and they were here early, there's no sense of, wow, these guys not only created this, but they're still ahead of us. Like, I'm miles ahead of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and these people. Of course, they're just fake and they're, whatever. But, in terms of when they are being truthful, I'm miles ahead because I've been doing this for years. Like I always say, people will come up, like people have come up to my wife who she told about like Pizzagate years ago, and they're like, oh, you're right about that. But then don't want to listen to her or anybody else. You guys probably experienced this about other things. You think I stood still? If I was ahead of the curve then, all I'm speaking for everybody. If we were ahead of the curve then, why aren't you listening to us about the stuff that we see now, right? Oh, no, I don't. Yeah, that's crazy. That's you were right about this thing, but this new thing you're doing is crazy. And so when they shit on us or they ignore what we've done and don't give credit, I got that video clip of Tucker Carlson, shitting on 9/11 truthers, right? Let me, well, I'm not going to put that in here because I got other things to cover. But he was like saying that they should be fucking locked up or whatever, right? Like extreme, censorship. But now, he's not that guy. He's changed. But, he's not acknowledging that there's many of us, they're always doing mainstream people, interviewing Charlie Kirk, interviewing Joe Kent, interviewing famous people. These famous people are, part of the problem. They weren't there creating something that was truthful or honest. If you want to talk about radical truth, then you have to go to the people, the average people, the normal people, the everyday people who have been seeking the truth and telling the truth to the best of their abilities now for years. But you're still gravitating to celebrity and power and shit like that, the worst of the worst. Anyways, let's move on to the next thing here. So this was posted on CNN, Trump post. On Monday, ICE will be going to the airports to help our wonderful TSA agents who have stayed on the job despite the fact that the radical left Democrats were only focused on protecting hardline criminals who have entered our country illegally, are endangering the USA by holding back the money that was long ago agreed to with the signed and sealed contracts and all. But watch, no matter how I don't know how great a job ICE does, the lunatics leading the incompetent Dems will be highly critical of their work. They will do a fantastic job. The great Tom Homan is in charge. President Donald J. Trump. You know, I mean, the blatant just disregard for the reality of how people are feeling about the war, right? And it's going to get worse. It's, you know, this isn't getting better at any time. There's going to be some, you know, maybe they'll try some false flag bullshit thing here. But, you know, the truth community has been so developed on this issue that, you know, I mean, there's nothing here to make this war sellable. They haven't sold it. And, you know, there's the dumb fuck Trumpers, but, you know, other than that, there's nothing, right? They have nothing. So there's the first piece.
Donald Trump just gave even more ammunition to anybody who has ever called him a wannabe dictator. He posted this morning, quote, "Now, with the death of Iran, the greatest enemy America has is the radical left, highly incompetent Democrat Party," end quote. Now, just...
Oh, thank you for this attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump, he's lost his shit, right? Because it was Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying, you know, this is the worst possible thing you could be doing to go into the midterms. And he's going to get fucking hammered in the midterms, and then the Democrats are just going to do that shit they did before. You know, pointless hearings about everything, impeachments that never go anywhere. You know, anything to keep the narrative going without actually getting rid of Trump. Like, Trump is their biggest asset. You know, people have largely forgot about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Like, people don't even think about the Democrats at all. The Democrats are non-existent. I saw Morning Joe, they had Chuck Schumer on today. And I'm like, why is he... You know, like, people have forgotten about the... Like, as much as they want to demonize them, AOC, I mean, I guess Gavin Newsom to some extent, but, you know, people are going to run for president in fucking 3 or 4 years. Like, right now, people are freaked out about the prices and the Trump's incompetence, and him bringing up Joe Biden or any of these people doesn't work. Like, people do not think about the Democrats. It's just, you know, the alternative to the disaster that's Trump, right? I mean, it's like hilarious that he's taking this tact.
Imagine if he had called Democrats a basket of deplorables. And of course, even more important than what he tweets is what he has actually done to inflict his...
Okay. Their voice is annoying me. Let's move on to the next thing.
Tonight, everybody, the president also saying there's not going to be a ceasefire in Iran. Full stop. Listen to this.
We can have dialogue, but I don't want to do a ceasefire. You know, you don't do a ceasefire when you're literally obliterating the other side.
So that is after we reported just 24 hours ago that thousands more U.S. Marines are heading to the region. You see the USS Boxer there deploying from San Diego, both sides hammering each other on the Persian New Year. Take a look at this moment that an Iranian missile fragment exploded in Jerusalem's Old City. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, issuing a written statement to mark the holiday, praising the resolve of Iran's citizens. And
all right, so let's move forward.
Simmons, who's in the region for us, reporting from Riyadh. But first, I want to go to Courtney QB, who is talking to us
QB,
where the military stands on all these things.
Oh, I don't know if the clear.
The flow of oil in the crucial waterway. And the president lashing out at allies for not getting involved, calling NATO a, quote, paper tiger without the U.S. and saying the fight in Iran is, quote, militarily won.
Okay, so somewhere here it's about ground troops. Let me see. They're saying he's weighing his options for ground troops. I could find who gives a shit. Like, it's just crappy MSNBC. But here it is, Israel's flag here. It should be like a little parasitic thing behind the U.S., like some kind of parasite, like in the belly. So we're going to go to Fetterman here.
Regime, let's watch.
Who do you think leads the Democratic Party today?
Oh, we don't have one. I think the TDS. I think that's the leader right now. You know, right now our party. Fox
News is featuring this guy now. They made fun of him for years, like, because he was fucking brain damaged, right? He had a stroke, and he was he was a big lurchy fucking George the Animal Steel, Gru, all these various, big, bald, fat ogre characters, Shrek, right? And he's awkward. He's got a weird wife. That whole thing. He did the worst debate performance ever, and Dr. Oz couldn't beat him. It was hilarious. And now, they are regularly going to this guy because of his support of Israel, his just really stupid support of it. I mean, if he could support it, not in the way he's doing.
Is governed by the TDS, and now it's made it virtually impossible without being punished as a Democrat to agree something's good, or I agree with the other side.
Well, look at this guy. Oh, look at who the hell? Look at this alien motherfucker. All right. So there's that. So then there was this. In February, Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed he would attend CPAC on March 21st as the guest of honor. Today, he did not appear at the live event, and his son Yair was sent in his place. There's a war, so there's that, but...
I'm thrilled to be here in Budapest. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I love Hungary. I think Israelis are discovering Hungary in recent years and fell in love with Hungary, and we all...
Look at this thing, CPAC Hungary. Who's this guy? Is he wearing a red, white, and blue fucking jacket? Like, why are they... Why is CPAC in Hungary? Is this a international? Got so many unanswered questions. And Netanyahu, I mean, that video that came out looked, not conclusive until we see him with, Trump. Even then it's not conclusive, but until you see him with some other world leader, at some event where there's people that can see him, right? Like him just doing a press conference with a bunch of, AI, whatever it is, right? People, or they could put people in there and have somebody, posing as him and then just, substitute that guy out, right? So anyways, damning study, over 1 million kids finds myocarditis only in the vaccinated. There's 1 million kids with myocarditis. Damning study of, what the hell is this blaze bullshit? Appear to have the problems solely in vaccinated kids. And so, millions of them. That's crazy. So there's that. This was from Meet the Press Sunday, maybe last week. I don't even know.
We're down lower than we've been in 7 years in gasoline prices and oil prices, not just the 3 states that I talk about with $1.99 a gallon. How would you like to have $1.99? That's...
Lower prices.
That's the equivalent of a very major...
Bigger paychecks.
Welcome back.
Wait.
Now,
the equivalent of a very major tax cut.
welcome back. Now, that was President Trump in Pennsylvania back in December, touting low energy and gas prices. Today, the average price for a gallon of gas in Pennsylvania is $3.76, according to AAA. That's higher than last week.
AAA.
And it's up more than 60 cents from a month ago. NBC News senior national politics reporter John Allen has been speaking with Pennsylvania voters. He's been out kind of on a road trip here in Millersburg, about 25 miles.
Yeah, so here, this was this woman here. This is the
cheapest place around, $3.54.9 a gallon here. And talk to folks. Better you hear from them than from me.
Exactly. Who wants to hear from this motherfucker?
About how they're feeling.
Let's roll the tape.
The decision to strike Iran.
It was a great decision. I think somebody else should have done it a couple of years ago, the last 3 other presidents.
Are you willing to pay higher prices at the pump if that's the cost?
Yeah, I'm willing to pay a little more, yeah.
What do you think about the war?
I think he's doing the right thing. In the long run, it's going to...
Price of gas?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think about the U.S. decision to go into Iran?
I think we got to do what we got to do to keep this country safe. So, and if it means paying a little bit more in gas right now to keep everybody safe, then that's what we got to do. And eventually they'll come back down.
And Kelly, most
so
of
this was the other one here.
Everybody felt that way, and not everybody's excited about Trump here, and not everybody's planning to vote for Republicans in the midterms who supported Trump. Let's take a listen to one more woman who we spoke with. if you could say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now, what would it be?
You're a worthless pile of
And you voted for him how many times?
3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
So not
Well, lots of
everyone is thrilled with
personality there,
President
John.
Trump, as you
Lots
heard.
of
Lots of personality there, John. John, there's lots of, that was a person. I saw personality there. All right, so there's that. So I've had this up for a while. Epstein Walk of Shame appears in Austin, Texas. Walk of Shame, here they go. Jeffrey Epstein. Where's the rest of the names? Show the rest of the names. Larry Summers. Peter Thiel. Casey Waterman. Harvey Weinstein. Was he an Epstein guy? I guess Dan Snyder was that? Going too fast, bro. You got a bad angle. Whatever. You got Trump on there because Trump's the fucking big one. Iran state media shared this Lego movie. Here is the devil with, 2 of his demons, right? Trump, look at him. There's Trump. They got the Epstein file. Look, here they are together. He's showing them. He's getting all mad. He's saying you're in this Epstein file with him. Here you are. The devil's over there with them. He's going to go launch some missiles on Iran. They're just hitting a school. Devastation there. The school could hit their school. It's got showing Lego movies. All these things, and then people in America getting bombed, and fucking this dude running for his, I guess maybe Israel, running for his life. The missiles coming in. Look at they're running for their lives here. And these guys are all trying to figure things out. So there's that. That's all the great things there. All right.
Gavin Newsom has admitted that he has learning disabilities. Honestly, I'm all for people with learning disabilities, but not for my president. I think a president should not have learning disabilities.
Okay, so I thought it was admitted that Trump had dyslexia. I guess I heard that from that comedian. Dyslexia is not I have it. It's a different kind of style. It's why I have good pattern recognition. Dyslexics see the whole. It doesn't do well with our system of education, but a lot of famous and, entrepreneurial type of, disruptors are dyslexic, right? And not that these guys, right?
Okay? And I know it's highly controversial to say such a horrible thing. The President of the United States, Gavin Newsom, admitted that he has learning disabilities, dyslexia, everything about him is dumb.
Okay, Jesus Christ. Trump cannot read. We've seen him read a speech. He can't do it, which would indicate, I thought it was well known that he has dyslexia. So that's amazing.
We also believe that it's important that we stand up against something that is a cancer in our country, and that's the rise of anti-Semitism.
Why is it a cancer? Let's say people, I talk about Israel, and, I have lots of Jewish friends and, people who were influential in my life. The guy who started me, the preceptor who started me, was, born Jewish. He became a Sajmarg spiritual practitioner. He left his religion behind, right? But, I've had people in my life, good friends and people who I grew up with in an area where there are a lot of Jewish people, right? And, it's a percentage of the Jewish population, just like in America. You can't hold all Americans accountable for Trump, even the ones who voted for him, because they're just too stupid to, the whole system's fucked, right? But there's legitimate problems in that community. But let's say you have people who actually hate him, who are like Nazis. How is that a cancer on the country? It's going to be a small fragment of the country that's going to go full hatred, right? It's not a cancer. Compared to other things that are real cancers in America, that's not that big a deal. It's almost nothing. There's almost nothing in terms of real true hate and real true hate crimes that they're trying to magnify. It's because as soon as people start criticizing Israel, people become aware that it's a parasitic relationship, right? That's the problem.
I believe that it's important that we stand up against something that is a cancer in our country, and that's the rise of anti-Semitism.
He's shaking his head no.
When we say no, never again, we need to mean it. But we need to do more than let it be a slogan. It needs to be a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. A lifestyle? So, I get this every day on Facebook. I get all these things because I looked at some of these things. I get all these things promoting, go rise against Jewish hate and, fight for Israel. This is none of those things, right? This is Israel. I mean, people realizing that there's a parasitic relationship and then putting out all this disinformation, right? Okay, so I don't know if these stories are related. Maybe about 5 days ago, I showed you some video of some guy, and there was a meteor, and the meteor was seen to be circling and flying intentionally and not obeying the laws of physics. Then this happened, and I forgot to show you this. Well, I didn't have time to.
Here in the U.S. tonight, and to this incredible sight seen in several states, a 7-ton meteor shooting across the sky. The sonic boom heard over multiple states. The meteor 6 feet in diameter, the ground shaking. Here's Rhiannon Alley tonight.
Tonight, NASA says this bright red fireball streaking through the sky, moving at 40,000 miles per hour and seen from at least 10 states, is a rare daylight meteor crashing into Earth.
Oh, what the was that?
The asteroid bursting through the Earth's atmosphere, sending loud sonic booms, rattling homes from Ohio to Kentucky. The blast so powerful it shook the ground, the rumbling registering on a seismograph.
It was just like a boom, like that.
I got boom. All right. Kaboom. Kablammy. Kablowy. Kablamo. All right. So I don't know. Maybe the aliens are finally showing up and they had enough of this bullshit that's going on.
Resources are being squandered on things like a $60 million jet for the director's personal travel so he can go golfing in Scotland or partying with athletes in Milan. In fact, according to a whistleblower account, those flights became so frequent they even delayed the Bureau's response to major incidents like the Charlie Kirk assassination or the shooting at Brown University. Credible reports also indicate that highly trained FBI agents from elite SWAT units have been reassigned to chauffeur his girlfriend.
Kash Patel facing scrutiny from Senator Mark Warner.
Okay, so who gives a shit? Like, nothing ever comes to this. I just want to say that there's a lot of dumb fucks out there who believe Trump's bullshit. Like we saw this earlier on. I didn't comment on it. But, those people that guy was interviewing in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of dumb fucks out there. And they believe whatever is told to them by Trump or whatever it is. Like they don't have curious minds and you can't reach them, you can't talk to them, And so, it isn't like, Trump and his people are just pandering to that small percentage of people. It's probably around 20% now who believe his bullshit, right? Okay, so my wife sent me this last night, 2 video clips of Australia. The Strait of Hormuz is not doing well for Australia, apparently.
So Sienna and I have just come to Coles to literally get popcorn. And look, there's nothing. Look at the shelves here in Darwin. What the? This is literally, there's nothing. Wait, there's one apple? Oh, yeah, some lemons.
Okay, so Exhibit A here. Fuel drying up on the Gold Coast. So, I haven't verified any. I mean, these are just some videos on Twitter, but, this is from Russia Today. So apparently, Trump 2028. 4 more years. So this is Trump's effects and Israel's effects on these countries. Like they're not going to be blaming Iran. Okay, as of March 2026, hundreds of Australian service stations have run out of fuel due to disruptions in shipments, leading the federal government to secure new supply deals with Singapore. While petrol and diesel shortages are acute, particularly in NSW, Victoria, and Queensland. This is largely a disruption and security crisis than a complete national depletion of all fuel stocks. You know, and you saw the store. Like the store would be the kind of bigger of the two, because people think, well, you won't be able to drive because you don't have gas, but nothing is, you can't ship things. Like it's, everything now, and this also, there's a global shipping. You have imports and exports, and so, fuel is everything. And, like this is just kind of the beginning, like just of that one, aspect that everybody knew about, like everybody involved in this, maybe not Trump, because he doesn't listen to people. So, but he's so fucking brilliant at disseminating information or synthesizing information and whatever those two clowns said. So it's bad, right? Like fucking, it's there it is. These various, this is what's up. So, we're so dependent on gas and electricity. Like I said, there's three things that cause collapse: food shortages, fuel shortages, and economic money collapse. The collapse of the monetary system. And any of those things will lead to the collapse of the other three. Fuel will lead to the collapse of, we'll have a petrodollar in these things, and it leads to collapse to the monetary system. The lack of electricity destroys the food system, and certainly we have a digital currency, and so the collapse of the food system and everything else just collapses with it. So, thanks, Trump, right? The other thing is there's just so many dumbasses out there who think, have no understanding of any of this. Like it's some kind of, the line was crossed. So it's not so much about just like, well, I'll cover this in a voiceover here. Okay, so I was saying before about crossing the line. There's things that you do that have a divine response. Everything has a divine response. Like if you do something egotistical that goes against your soul's path and God's will, there's consequences. And if you do something that goes along with that, your soul's plan, there's also consequences, right? There's cause and effect in the divine universe. Cause and effect exists everywhere and everyone can see it. And so there is, some things that are done like this. There's been a lot of bullshit wars and a lot of, the false flags and, 9/11, all those kind of things. And, all those things cross the line to whatever extent. But this one really crossed the line. Like Trump just coming out and now just lying about everything. Israel saying, pretending to be a victim and all these things, and, blaming anti-Semitism for people being upset about the relationship between America and Israel. Americans being upset about this, waking up to it, right? The lies are so blatant and so in your face, and they're not even trying to win you over. They're not even trying to do some kind of false flag or some excuse for this thing. They're just doing it. Like I was looking at, I was editing that thing with Kash Patel. And he's just flying around this private jet. These motherfuckers are, partying like fucking gangsters on the American taxpayer dollar and right in your fucking face. And those guys are talking about it in Congress and nobody's doing shit about it. Like they're getting away with it. They had to fire Kristi Noem because of her embarrassing performance. But that's, all these people just lying about the Epstein files, just lying, just right in your fucking face. People bailing on this government and getting slammed like they're the problem. Joe Kent and, Marjorie Taylor Greene and people buying into it because they just don't want to confront their own fucking mental incompetence and their inability to see the truth. These Trumpers. And just same thing with Joe Biden when the guy was just walking around shitting himself and fucking falling off his bike and stumbling around with obvious like dementia, and they're just pretending he doesn't have it. And they're like, oh yeah, he does have it. And then they roll out Kamala Harris. All that stuff. It crosses a line of just not even making an attempt to make it seem like not even lying anymore in a way that's, can be considered reality. Like that, making excuses or at least causing some doubt in just, in terms of their credibility. But instead just saying, fuck you, we're doing this, and if you don't like it, tough shit. Fetterman rolling out, like these fucking morons. Like there's a line that's crossed, right? Like just, you're breaching reality. Like you're pushing, an agenda and a reality that is Like, it's just obviously not true. Like, and it's unbelievable that people can't see through it. And so when you do that, there's like catastrophic effects, and just the selfishness of the thing. Like, all these people, kids are going to starve all over the world from the Strait of Hormuz, the fuel costs, and the rest of these things. And they're just, the selfishness in which they're not caring about the global community or anybody else. I mean, it's anybody who's a godly person that has a heart and has a conscience, kid, wouldn't do something like this. They would, you wouldn't be able to sleep. You'd feel horrible, right? And they just don't. These people are like soulless, right? They're inhuman. You can feel it, like something's different, like a line has been crossed. Like it's just gone to a next level of depravity. All right, I'll come back. I'm going to read the comments, see if there's anything more to cover here. I just want to add something to it. You have these moments of truth in your life, right? One of the moments of truth is your death, and right before your death, and things leading up to your death, like just, all of it starts to play on your mind, right? You start, not just that, you just like are dealing with the consequences of your life, right? I mean, other than a quick one-off car accident, something happens quickly. When people are in the long death process as they get older, they start to, think about their lives and their regrets and things. And so that's like a moment of truth, things that would, make you go deeper, or make you, have some sort of existential crisis or whatever it is. It's not a word I say easily. Going back to this dyslexia. Dyslexia isn't a disability. Like, I wouldn't give my dyslexia up. Like, it's very effective for what I do here and, in my life and things like this, pattern recognition and things. And so, I mean, anyways, going back to what I was saying, I don't think about myself as a dyslexic. I know that that's, the kind of learning style I have, or the way that I interpret data. Like, it's a different way. And I'm not feeling like it's a liability, it's an asset, right? But anyways, going back to this thing with Trump and the, moment of truth, you have these things, these big moments. You have this kind of stuff that happens. And when those things happen in your life, or changes that are global, something that affects everybody. And this Iran war is something where there's two bullshit political parties and two bullshit worldviews in America, the dominant worldviews of the right and the left wing. And, they can't, they're both they're based in complete lies. And when you take all your chips and push them in the center of the table, and you go all in on this bullshit worldview, something that Trump doesn't even believe in. Like, he's not a right-wing person. He's just a grifter, like, who's learned to talk to right-wing people. He hung out with the Clintons and gave, money to the Democrats, and he was liberal on things like abortion, things that were in other positions. He wasn't just one, he wasn't a conservative. And, most belief systems, people are frauds. Like, liberals aren't really liberal. They're very selfish. You can't be selfish and liberal. You can't pretend to care about other people and disadvantaged and disenfranchised people and be that selfish and just, immature in these things, like, and non-intellectual, emotionally based, but pretending to be, the more evolved, the more educated, the more refined of the two groups. And the right-wing conservatives, most Christians suck. Like, they suck at Christianity. Like I said, if they saw Christ and they met Christ, they would reject him. Like, they would reject him just the same way he was rejected before, because they don't really want God. They don't want Christ. They don't want to be told they have to change, right? This is most religions. Christianity has got its own specific way about it. But they're not good with Christ. They're not good with what, his essential message is, right? They're fakers. They're posers. Like, they, I mean, there's some Christians that are just great people, and they're really wanting to serve God. And, like any religion, there's going to be some people that are just good at it because of themselves, not because of the religion. The religion is preventing them from, they often go against their religion or seen as troublemakers because they're like doing it right. And they're good with God, and that causes problem for the religion and the religious teachers and the clergy and the rest of it, right? But the majority of the people suck at it. Like, they pretend to be something. They flirt. They have their moments, but mostly they suck at it, right? And so the worldview is faulty. Like, it's a flawed worldview. because the stuff isn't coming from God. It's coming from a bullshit religion and a bullshit, ideology. And then when you go all in on it, then there's going to be like, hey, this is bullshit, right? There's going to be a rebound. There's going to be an effect, right? Of, hey, this is based in lies, and you're like, you suck, and this kind of thing. There are times when your lies come back to you. That's what I mean when a moment of truth. There's things that happen that where your bullshit worldview and your bullshit life and all the lies you've been telling yourself and things, and you think it's going to go a certain way because you're so deluded by your own bullshit, and then it goes the other way, and you're like, oh fuck, and you don't know what to do because like your whole worldview just got fucking exposed, right? And that's what's happening here. Like this is, we've never seen something this blatantly, like self-destructive. Like we've seen some shit over my lifetime, but this is, by far the worst thing. And it's, it's going to come back, and it's, this whole dysfunctional relationship and all the things to do with Israel and all this stuff, it's coming back, and it's not going to end well. Okay, so I got some stuff to do, and then outside work, and then come back and read the comments and wrap this thing up. Okay, so I did some outdoor work and I had to go shopping. And I came back and I was scrolling through the news to make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't look through the news like I used to. I used to look at MSNBC and then MS now, I guess. Page 6 and whatever it is, New York Post. Kind of shit that I used to cover. And then Huffington Post, and I, barely ever do that anymore. So, people send me stuff, and I can look at X, and, the videos recommended by YouTube is enough, and then I'll watch the news. So I started watching the news at breakfast, and were they covering the plane crash? I'm not sure. Maybe something else they were covering. And then I was eating lunch, and I turned CNN on, and Wolf Blitzer was covering women's NCAA tournament upset. So then I ended up looking at page 6, and that's like kind of a celebrity gossip thing. And there was 2 stories. There was a bachelorette who, there's an old tape, she's on the show The Bachelorette, and I guess she was on Mormon Wives or something. She's got 3 kids. I saw a preview for the show maybe a month ago, and she had 3 kids, and I was like, is that really something, that's going to work? And apparently she beat the shit out of some guy. I saw the video, TMZ video. And I guess she got an assault charge against her, and they had to cancel the whole... my wife had told me about this like a couple days ago. But I just happened to see it on page 6. And she's beating the shit out of the guy. And, the way that she's acting reminded me of my ex when she would lose her shit. And so there was that. And then Alan Richardson, something like that. Rickson, I don't know. He plays Jack Reacher, and he plays some other... I just saw a Netflix movie where he was fighting aliens, and that kind of was pretty gay. But he did some interview where he was sexually abused as a male model. I assume by, gay men or whatever. It was a weird interview, and he's always looks crazy if you see his eyes. And there's something like off about the guy. And they show him beating the shit out of one of his rich neighbors over his motorcycle making too much noise, and I guess his kids were there with him. This video of this girl beating the shit out of her boyfriend or husband or whatever it was, her daughter's is screaming. And so, there's just all this stuff. And then there was some other fight stuff that's happened. There's been about 3 or 4 fights in the NBA. A lot of shit like that, just it seems like people are losing their shit. I'm going to put in an audio here in a moment that's going to be a standalone video. I'm doing the anger and hatred cleaning after doing the fear cleaning on 7 days of these meditations, these sittings. For people who are interested, you have to do the introductory meditations, the 3 cleanings on 3 consecutive days. There's a playlist for all this stuff. The Gratefulness meditation is always linked in the description box. But people who are interested in doing this kind of stuff, there's these meditations are always free, and the instructions are there before the video, but also, the introductory session, there's a playlist, and it teaches you how to do the meditation and gives you all the resources you need to find out more about it. But anyways, people are losing their shit. Like, and you're going to see this more and more. Just like, You know, I mean, there's an upscale amount of, I mean, this woman beat the shit out of this guy years ago, but it's like all this shit's coming to the surface, and so all that's happening. I think there's only one comment I want to get to here. Let me see if there's any more after this, but I guess my last video had me talking about Trump is grifting chameleon, and somebody said that they were complaining about my swearing, and somebody wrote, "Cussing is absolutely necessary to describe what the fuck is going on right now. I mean, really, we're all witnessing a complete clusterfuck. Our way of life is going to shit, and some people are worried about their sensitive virgin ears being accosted by some naughty words. Don't worry, Paul, they won't make it. Stellar video. They added verbal accoutrement are like the candy sprinkles on a sundae, and my gratitude is the cherry on top, always grateful." And then somebody else wrote, "I remember the days when he had to say this M and F'er." And when I did the beep, like I wouldn't mind bringing back the beep. Beep. I would just beep I would beep myself. And then I would sometimes say it and then do a beep. I had a little beep, on one of my files. And I just put it in there. Boop. I do my own. So that was all cool too. But I mean, it's so fucked up now, so I guess swearing it's not necessary because there's people who don't do it. But really, the way things are going now, swear words are some of the best describers of what's happening in the world. And now he goes, the person says, "I remember the days where he had to say M and F'er, this M and F'er." Now he goes, "Balls to the wall," and his swearing is hilarious after being gone for a while. And watching it again, I dig it. Go, Paul. Well, I don't want to be cheered on for swearing. I'm not like proud of it, but I started to swear when I was young. My dad had kind of encouraged it. So I was saying, like, I was 6, 7, 8 years old swearing. And so, kids swore at school, but like, at recess. And my dad took me to R-rated movies like what was that called? Blazing Saddles, bullshit Mel Brooks kind of vaudeville stuff that my dad was into. Anyways, so it's there, and so I grew up differently than some other people. Who my mom didn't swear at all. She was a devout Catholic. Was not happy about me swearing, but she just sort of gave up on shit. Right? I was the 5th kid, and my brother, my older brother, and 3 older sisters had pretty much demoralized my parents by coming back and saying, "You guys fucking were horrible parents." And so, my parents were older, so the fight gets sort of taken out of you. The energy level goes down, and my parents kind of were. I got tested, and they realized I had a high IQ, and I just outsmarted them all the time. Like when we played board games or whatever it was, so they're kind of scared of me, and they're kind of beaten down and old and incompetent. So I just was basically doing my own thing, and plus neither one of them was home. Like they had a girl from high school. My sister sometimes would be there. My sister was 10 years older than me, but she played sports in high school, and she did cheerleading for, I don't know, she was more active. And so sometimes it's this girl, I think she had a Russian name or something. She was like an immigrant, kid, and she'd be there watching me, but sometimes I just come home and, like I've told stories about that. I almost burned down the house, and like it was just, I was just out on my own. Like my parents were pretty much ignored me, which was probably for the best. Anyways, well, there's a voiceover here that I'm going to leave that is for the new playlist on Gratefulness Meditation. Those people are looking for something like that. It's available in the description box to all my videos, Gratefulness Meditation channel. And it's good to go through the channel and explains how to do the meditation and all that. Maybe I'll do that here at some point. But you're just meditating on the supposition of divine light in the heart. And there's a cleaning process you do at the end of the day. And I can't say enough good things about the system, especially, it's always good, and particularly now, because the way the world is going, it's probably going to get better. All right, so here's the other voiceover. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Monday, March 23rd. I believe I'm going to start this thing tomorrow. I'll put a video up. I guess tonight this will be live, and then tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll do the first sitting, which will be a sitting to do with cleaning anger and hatred and things associated with that. I felt like this was a natural progression given, if you go through the stages of grief, the first stage is denial, which is associated with fear. And the second one is anger. Now, not that this 5 stages of grief, I mean, gratitude should be a part of it. Like, gratitude should be the end. Gratitude's always where everything ends in gratitude. Or it doesn't, when you complete the cycle, it ends in gratitude. And so, this isn't about the 5 stages of grief. We're not going to go through bargaining, and what's the last one? Acceptance, and I'm missing one, depression. But what maybe, I don't know if we will do depression. I guess that would be something because, we're talking about right now, today's, March 23rd, the prophecy, Babaji's prophecy from Whispers of the Brighter World and again, prophecy is not whatever, work that was done to start this world war, this thing that's happening now, that's unfolding. And, fear comes up, and then once the fear subsides, it's anger, right? And there's going to be anger, and there's already anger now. Like, I don't feel particularly angry, but I'm sure there'll be, when I start doing these sittings, it'll pull out some anger. Again, fear and anger are natural. Hatred is not. Hatred is a human-created thing. But you come down, animals feel fear and anger, fight or flight. These are survival mechanisms, so there's a naturalness to it. But, everything that's not natural will be cleaned out. So, this is like the fear playlist. There'll be 7 sittings beginning Tuesday, and then it'll, end up being whatever it is at the end of it. Monday. It'll end a week from today. And so I'll, hopefully get this video up tonight. My video is going up on Pockets of the Future at 9. So this one will probably be later because I don't know how they do notifications for 2 channels associated with the same email account, right? And so, whatever that is, but this video will go up in later today, tonight, and then Tuesday, some point I'll put out a video, probably later in the day. I got some stuff to do in the morning, unless I do the first sitting today. I don't know how it'll go. I'll probably do the first sitting tomorrow, though. We'll see how it all plays out. But anyways, there'll be, 7 sittings that'll be particularly focusing on anger and things. And when people are going through that, I just did the fear playlist again. And so that was, around the time, it must have, I don't know when here I can look that up right now. Did this not go up? I have to make this public too. I thought I put it in the playlist, but I didn't. Here. Okay, so I made that public. The last sitting was on the 27th of February, the fear sitting. So I started on the 20th or the 19th or whatever it was. And, so it was right before the war started, which was a good thing, I guess, because, my health has improved. I was going through a hard thing, this whole thing that transpired. I feel like it's benefited me. And I just made that video public about doing I've done the 7 sittings, received the 7 sittings in the playlist twice. So the second time was, better. I mean, I had, it was, I don't say better, but it was, I was going through a lot, doing the playlist, and then I was having the heart issues. And so all those things were happening. And then, the big event. So I guess that's now been 23 days since that's been completed. So 3 weeks, and then we'll be doing this playlist now. And I look forward to it. Again, it's going to be specifically pulling for anger and hatred, and I'll do update videos as well. Various, things of my own reaction and whatever. I'll talk about on the main channel. There'll be, I'll be covered in the the Journey series that's available for members. And so, all these voiceovers get covered in these various, videos. So, that's, positive thing. And we'll see how this all plays out, but I feel, good about it. All right, I don't think there's much to add. Just, there'll be 7 sittings, and specifically for fear and anger, and for anger and hatred. And it was, for those of you who did the fear playlist, or someday in the future that's available as well if you haven't done that. And again, if you haven't done the introductory sittings for anything that's on this channel, the Gratefulness Meditation channel, you have to do the 3 introductory sittings in 3 consecutive days. I don't want to say you have to, but that's the way you're supposed to do it. And you're always supposed to do things the way you're supposed to do them, right? It's like you're adding ingredients. And if you decide to do something where you add something to the dry mix instead of the wet mix, or let's say you cook the egg and you add a scrambled egg instead of a raw egg, it's going to affect everything in the recipe, right? And the way the Sajmark system works, it works in your internal world, and your internal world has to be prepped. You get these initial sittings that are to clear out enough space so that the first transmission can be given, and that introduces the person into the system. And so there's a playlist that says introductory sitting, and then there's the voiceovers that go with it, explains how you do the meditation, all these things. It's important to know because I'm not explaining the meditation. You meditate on the supposition of divine light in the heart. The bailman just came in. The dogs are going crazy. Supposition of divine light in the heart. And then, again, this is all explained in various playlists and things. So knowing how to do the meditation or the prayer that's there, all the things to do with that. And then you understand how the meditation's done. And then something like this that's specific to, the sitting itself has changed, but the meditation that you're doing is the same thing. And so getting introduced to the system is important. That you do it the way that it's told is a discipline. Like, it's not stuff that people can make up. People do new age practices, and they just change things. The fake new age gurus and the people that do it, and they do smorgasbord type of, I'll do this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, and a little bit of fucking peyote, and a little bit of ayahuasca, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of Reiki, and these things are all, they may not, work together well, or they might have negative effects, right? Like, when you blend things together, just things might be good things, but you put them together and they make a mess. They're not supposed to be mixed. And so, this is a discipline, and you're supposed to do it the way it's told, and not think more coming right in off the bat, right? Because that's how Americans are, particularly, and people are. And so, the way to do this system is to do the 3 introductory sittings, 1 on each day, and then you're introduced to the system. If you haven't done the meditation in a year or 2, it's always good to redo those sittings, and then you can do some of these other playlists, some of these other things. Anyways, so, the first sitting will be up on Tuesday, and I think that's it for now. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.